Good afternoon to some. Good. Unfortunately, it's only a 15 minutes, but in those 15 minutes, I'm going to take you through what we do at Dell, Dell Technologies. How do we work with different, data and AI challenges and issues, addressing the failures of what you heard in the previous session. How do we help organization to automate some of the process and the pickup of what type of AI use cases, phrasing challenges, addressing different issues. And yes, AI do sometimes fail if you don't have the right text in place and you don't have the right kind of expert in the SMEs. I think most of the topics addressed has a high level of true on it, but there's a lot of dependency if you need to have a successful type of practice within your organization. And this is the reason why we built what we call it Dell Technologies Innovations Lab for the AI, right? And within that innovation labs, we do collaborate with different technology stack vendors. We rely on our infrastructure for the AIs. We rely on our other kind of selected vendors that we work with, like NVIDIA's and others. But the most important things, it's cool, I have the presentation in front of me. The most important things is not just about the technologies, it's not just about getting the right gears in terms of infrastructure. It is also around the SMEs and the domain knowledge. So when we address, let's say a finance, or we address telco, or maybe we address, kind of different sector, energies, healthcare, and others, we're bringing that domain knowledge. Domain or knowledge on the type of data, understanding what the data and what the kind of business objective that we need to accomplish. So it's not just a technology play, it's a technology in addition to the business play. That what will make together a successful AI project. So what left for me, I'm going to discuss how we set up Data Science Innovation Lab for an organization. And this is basically the very initial milestone. It's not a big bang project. We start as a smaller scale, and that smaller scale is good for both of us as a customer and us as a vendor to establish a common understanding of what we would like to address, what are the challenges. We got more an insight of what do you have in terms of digital assets. And this is really very important, is to start small, realize the potential of what you have, and then basically you expand. And you expand on the number of use cases. You expand on your capacity building in terms of data scientist, data practitioner, and you expand and use skills on the kind of lab, which is basically a variety of tools and infrastructure as required. So what I'm going to address briefly, how do we help organizations to start small in the AI data science journey with this Dell Technology Data Science Innovation Lab. I'm going to touch briefly on how we build with our customers across the region a center of excellence for AI, and how do we help our customer to have a single view or unified data experience for what we call it the unified data hub. Right, so essentially, the way we look at AI is not just a grab of a different text and put together on the hope that you're going to produce a good result. We look at this as a program, right? And it could be a program across the country, or it could be just a program for the organization. And what do we address? We address very specific topics to avoid the failures of others, right? And this is from a long type of journey of learning how AI, data science, practice, data analytics fail. Right, we kind of grab a different type of component in terms of functions. Those functions, some of them are technology play, and some of them are pure business play and industry play. So we look at the first phase of this. How do we work with you closely to establish the first data and AI lab? And that's the phase one. And the lab is the kind of an environment where you could play your the kind of bare minimal viable products. You navigate through the data set you have. You start to understand the issues, because most of the customers, trust you me, they don't even know what they 100% know what the digital asset they have and what type of data. So when you go into an AI projects, on the hope that you're going to address a use case, you're going to end up with a lot of issues. Data quality, as mentioned before, building the right pipeline, do the integrations, grab the data in place, the skill sets, and others. So what we're trying to avoid with all of this is to build a very kind of minimal lab for you at the really cost. And then when we do that, we try to go into the next phase where we expand our footprint from a smaller lab to build a minimum viable products into how do you provide the AI and the data and AI as a whole for your organization as a service. Because for big organizations, you end up with different business units that they demanding completely different things. They work on a completely different set of algorithm or set of technologies. The function of a data scientist, it doesn't belong to the IT anymore. The function is moving gradually to the business. So you get, they do hire their own data scientists or business analysts or data analysts who sometimes are familiar with, who sometimes they require different set of technology. So eventually, you need to build your AWS type of setup within your organization for all those kind of community of data scientists and AI practitioners to start consuming the service as a service, right? With a kind of a chargeback built-in type of concept. So this is what we plan. What we usually plan with our customer is how do you essentially containerize your platform, bringing this into a unified space where you could eventually provide your data assets and AI services to the wider community. We look at our customer data engineering practice, where we help them out to establish the practice, to look at the enterprise repository, to look at the gap in their current architecture, which is very critical to the success of the AI itself, is to have the right established on your data practice. So we look at how we built your enterprise data architecture. We look at the current existing as is and where we want it to be, and we define the roadmap with our customer as a blueprint for the data and AI type of an architecture. It's very critical to establish that. In some of our customers, especially when we talk about government, we try to, like any other kind of entities that we worked with, there's usually an AI type of functions within the government strategy. We try to help them, or we help you in this region as how they could establish their training center. It's not just a training center, let's say it's a knowledge center where they could actually start to build the national capacity program. And this is very key and very important. It's something that we establish within the region with other government across, is how do you build your national program for AI. When we work with our customer, we help them out with the kind of solution grouping. The solution grouping is a focus. So we look at, let's say, healthcare. How do we bring our expertise on the healthcare? There are healthcare practitioners who are helping us to define what the best things to do for the health organizations or for the patients. And that's why I said the domain knowledge of the industry is very critical to the success of the AI. We also, in some instance, we help our customers to start to business development, especially the cloud providers. So the cloud providers the cloud providers of these services, we help them out to business develop, right? How do they penetrate market? Overall, if I look at the end-to-end picture of what we intended to do, you could look at this and you could say, hey, this is an end-to-end type of platform that address different users, address different functions, right? And those users, they could be creators of those use cases. They could be the operators who actually operate this platform, or it could be the end consumers. And the end consumers, it could be a business users. Those end consumers, they could consume result. Those are the consumer of the result of my modeling. Those that could be pushed through an application, or it could be pushed through a website, or just any other interactive platform. Because eventually, all our models that we develop within the lab are exposed as an endpoint API, so it could be consumed by any. The operators, the whole platform is built in a containerized type of environment. The whole stack is built on a hybrid converged infrastructure that equipped with different variety of compute power, whether this is the CPUs, or the GPUs, or a mixture. And then we cater for kind of console to operate this on-premise cloud, right? For the IT, for the dev operations, for other business users who they wanted to look at the risk and the compliance, we still treat them as an operator. And then the curators, it could be the data scientists, your data analyst, your data engineering team, others, or they fall into that curator. So those are the kind of different, those are the main three personas that they use the platform, and this is what we catered for. But eventually, what we help our customers with is to an environment to develop, which is, we call it the ML development, an environment to AI ops, or ML ops. And the ML ops, anyone familiar with the ML ops? So this is the place where we cater for some of our customers to avoid the issues or to monitor the kind of discussion that you guys had it earlier. Monitoring of the performance, degradation not just of the model, a degradation of the data and the data shapes, which is essentially it kind of work out what the kind of your end result and accuracy should look like. Accuracy is not just about the numbers. Accuracy is around the numbers and the business, both. And those ML ops type of tools, they allow you to extract features. When you develop your models, they allow you to extract features and a combinations of features that you were not aware of when you start building your models. And eventually, we push everything through what we call it the ML consume. And the ML consume is basically an endpoint APIs, kind of delivered in the form of a container. This is what we call it the end-to-end automations. We use different tools and technology stack in there, built on the same Kubernetes type of cluster or different orchestration cluster. We decide on what's the best approach based on our discussion with our customers. And then we address multi-models. The multi-models, it could be anything from time series to regressions to forecasting to neural networks to computer vision type of works. And basically, we deploy anywhere. It's very hard these days to avoid the hybrid cloud model discussion, right? So when we build the platform on that kind of strategy or concept, how our customer could leverage what the cloud are offering them in terms of use cases, in terms of models, in terms of just a consumer as a service. I could work with my on-premise models and I consume, let's say NLP library coming from some other hyperscalers. I could go, hey, I wanted to do my facial recognition services with X hyperscalers and I still be able to do that from my on-premise solutions through what we call it the gateway containers, right? So this is what we built together for our customer, a hybrid platform, hybrid in terms of consumptions. A platform is unified in terms of accessibility and usability, a unified data platform that allow you to avoid silos and build on within. Deploy anywhere, because everything is packaged as a container services. You could pretty much deploy it as on-premise, or you could actually deploy it on the hyperscalers as well. So I could build something really cool for Amman, specific, let's say tourism industry, and I wanted to export this in AWS as a service. I could build something, right, and that something will go, this is the best way when you land in Muscat, this is the best way to visit, and this is how you should visit it, and this is what the route to visiting different places. What are the events in Oman today? How do I optimize your cost by traveling? And I push this as a very simple concept of a tourism type of model. I push it in AWS and others, and it's still other applications from other across the region or globally, they could use this as a service, and that's it. I could do the facial recognition in anything. I could use Microsoft Azure for facial recognition. I could go Google to go, hey, I wanted to do translation, right? And I wanted to do Arabic to English or English to Arabic translations. And rather than me building the whole thing from scratch, I'm going to go, hey, Google Vision.ai.api, this is my text, give me the text in retain. And I could do all of that within my one single environment. This is pretty much the end-to-end. I think it's a very comprehensive picture. It allows you to program and build anything from various way of type of tools and technologies and language. We are very, very vendor type agnostic. We don't push any specific products. We build everything on an open source. We are the first who established the open source community for the data called the ODB, right? So we believe in open source as the technology forward, as a technology of escalation, as a technology of innovations, because you don't have that vendor locking. You develop your things. It's all about innovations. The last thing you wanted to do is to have a vendor locking. So we program in anything. We help to automate and push this into our platform to do a lot of automation to eventually ML consume. A lot of people, they ask about what the kind of execution roadmap. Usually we start with the kind of discussion with our customer. We built something called the KYD Plus, which is the Know Your Data. And the Know Your Data is the very early qualification process. Qualification for us to understand what we are up to, and for the customer to understand what the landscapes of the current data and AI or the current digital assets. When we agree on that, we start to build the first data and AI innovations lab with the selected use cases, and what a selected use cases that we deliver together. It's not just about the kind of us doing the work. What we try to do when we establish the data and AI lab, we select a couple of use cases, and the couple of use cases that we develop with the customer through an agile delivery. It's not just us doing the work. We try to nominate a couple or 3 data scientists to be part of our program, and we embed them within the projects, because this is what we think the kind of the best way for adoptions is how do we develop use cases together for the customer to continue with the innovation process. So eventually, one of the steps, which is the critical steps, how we could together build this, the kind of capacity building program, which is we do usually start with the data and AI at the surface, where we take some of your data or potential data scientists to be part of our team for 3-6 months, and this eventually you will foster your first data and AI practice in it to carry the work forward. And eventually we provide everything, as I said, as the surfaces, as a data and AI as the surfaces, eventually with some industry use cases. So the component that will make up the data and AI as a service platform, or the Data Science Innovation Lab, it consists of a data science platform, and the data science platform, it could be anything, right? It could be 9, Data IQ, Data Robot, it could be Anaconda, it could be anything. It's pretty much based on the result of the KYD session that we usually take with our customer. We try to build an enablement program to enable our customer to take the work forward in terms of innovations and sustainability of that type of platform. The platform is built an end-to-end from a Dell solution for AI infrastructure, and basically we help our customer to develop those kind of selected innovative use cases for a short period or a medium period of time, and basically we do the handover on the hope our customer will eventually become a center of excellence or specialized in a very specific domain challenges and issues. I hope I'm in time. Thank you very much indeed for everyone who was listening to me. If you need any help, reach out to myself or the team on the booth, and thank you very much indeed.